Let's start it with our first news. Earlier today, UFC President Dana White managed to stir up the entire MMA community with what initially looked like a teaser for something massive. The buzz started when Dana shared a post on his Instagram story, a picture of himself casually smoking a cigar. Alongside the photo, he wrote, "I have a feeling today is going to be an incredible day." That one line was enough to send shockwaves through the MMA fanbase. Within minutes, speculation began to spread like wildfire across social media platforms. Was Dana about to announce a major fight? Could there be a blockbuster event reveal in the works? Or was the UFC preparing to shock fans with something completely unexpected? The possibilities felt endless, and as always, Dana's words carried weight. Fans, analysts, and media outlets alike were throwing out every possible theory, from Conor McGregor making his long-awaited return to Khamzat Chimaev being booked for another massive clash. For a few hours, anticipation built at a rapid pace. Social media feeds were flooded with memes, predictions, and heated debates about what the UFC boss could be hinting at. The MMA community thrives on speculation, and Dana knows exactly how much influence his words hold. But then, just as quickly as the hype had started, it came crashing back down. A few hours later, Dana followed up his paste your text here or select text then apply effect cryptic post with another update, this time with a very different tone. He admitted, "I jumped the gun. Today is going to be a regular day." With that, all the wild theories and high hopes were shut down in an instant. There would be no earth-shattering fight announcement, no blockbuster reveal, and no breaking news, at least not today. The reaction from fans was mixed. Many were left disappointed after convincing themselves that something huge was on the horizon. Some believed that McGregor's return or even a long-rumored super fight could have been the big reveal. Others, however, took the situation more lightly, joking that Dana might have simply been enjoying a great cigar and good mood when he posted his message. Still, this small episode once again highlighted Dana White's incredible influence over the fight world. Even a vague statement from him, just a single sentence, can dominate headlines, stir conversation, and set the MMA community into overdrive. The fact that fans and media jumped so quickly on such a simple post shows the level of power Dana holds when it comes to shaping narratives in combat sports. While today turned out to be a regular day, as Dana put it, the incident also serves as a reminder that with him, you never really know. He's a master of both promotion and timing. Sometimes it's intentional hype building, sometimes it's just off-the-cuff remarks, but either way, people pay attention. For now, there's no major UFC announcement, but history tells us that with Dana White, the next big reveal could come at any moment. And when it does, fans will once again be ready to drop everything and tune in. Move on to another news. Former UFC champion Alex Pereira has once again stirred the MMA world, this time with a fiery revelation from his latest YouTube video. Pereira detailed an unexpected encounter with his rival Magomed Ankalaev and his team at the UFC Performance Institute, an encounter he claims left Ankalaev looking embarrassed and exposed. According to Pereira, as soon as Ankalaev saw him approaching, the Russian fighter immediately ducked into a small room, almost as if he were hiding to avoid a confrontation. Pereira didn't hold back in describing the moment. He painted a picture of Ankalaev as nervous, weak, and far from embodying the fearless warrior mentality expected at the highest level of the sport. From there, Pereira launched into a brutal verbal assault. He flat out called Ankalaev a horrible champion, and went as far as to label him a complete embarrassment to the sport. Pereira stressed that he sees no toughness, no grit, and no true fighting spirit in his rival. His words were not just casual trash talk, they were direct, biting, and clearly designed to sting. Taking things even further, Pereira mocked Ankalaev with a cutting joke. He claimed that when they meet in the cage again, Ankalaev might actually climb over the octagon fence and run away mid-fight rather than face him like a man. Such remarks showcased Pereira's confidence but also amplified the already intense animosity between the two fighters. This isn't just business anymore, it's deeply personal. Pereira made it clear that he is laser-focused on reclaiming the championship belt that slipped through his hands. In his view, Ankalaev is an undeserving title holder, and their rematch is not just about competition, it's about exposing him in front of the entire world. Pereira's conviction comes from experience. He's been at the top before, and he refuses to settle for anything less. On the other side, Ankalaev has not taken the insults lightly. In response, he's promised that their rematch will not end with the judges making the decision. He has vowed to finish Pereira decisively, shutting down any narrative that paints him as unworthy or weak. For Ankalaev, this is a chance to silence critics, prove his legitimacy, and cement his place as a dominant force in the division. With the fight scheduled for October. The clock is ticking, and the tension continues to build with every passing day. What began as a professional rivalry has now escalated into one of the most heated matchups in recent UFC history. Both fighters are motivated not only by the belt but also by pride, respect, and legacy. This rematch is shaping up to be much more than a championship contest. It is a battle of wills, egos, and reputations. Pereira wants to humiliate Ankalaev and make a bold statement to the division, while Ankalaev seeks to shut down the disrespect and prove himself as the rightful champion. By the time October arrives, fans can expect fireworks. This fight promises not just a clash of skills but an all-out war between two men determined to break each other and leave no doubt about who truly belongs at the top. Move on to another news. Dutch middleweight contender Erdi has made his intentions crystal clear. His sights are locked firmly on the UFC middleweight championship, a title currently held by the dominant Khamzat Chimaev. Erdi was originally scheduled to face Anthony Hernandez, but a serious injury forced him out of that matchup. Instead, the UFC quickly adjusted, booking Brendan Allen as the replacement for the UFC Vancouver main event on October 18. While the setback was disappointing, it hasn't slowed down Erdi's ambition. If anything, the Dutch star has doubled down on his mission to establish himself as the top threat to Chimaev's reign. What makes his journey even more compelling is the brewing rivalry between Erdi and fellow contender Nassourdine Imavov. Both fighters are sitting near the top of the division's rankings, and with the middleweight title picture heating up, it's clear that only one of them will earn the next shot at UFC gold. This has created a dilemma for UFC matchmakers. On one hand, Imavov's momentum makes him a dangerous option, but on the other, Erdi's rising stock and urgency to fight sooner rather than later make him a compelling candidate. Erdi has openly expressed that timing is everything, particularly with the holy month of Ramadan approaching. Speaking with MMA Junkie, he laid out his intentions without hesitation. "I don't want to wait. I want to line myself up to fight maybe before Ramadan. If Khamzat wants to fight before Ramadan, I want to be ready for that time. I want to fight right now. The UFC wanted to keep me on the Vancouver card, so it worked out that way." That sense of urgency is evident. Erdi knows that a dominant performance in Vancouver will force the UFC's hand, leaving them little choice but to reward him with the opportunity he feels he deserves. His confidence and hunger to strike while momentum is on his side have made him one of the most talked about rising threats in the division. Meanwhile, Khamzat Chimaev remains an immovable presence at the top. The reigning champion has repeatedly shown his ability to overwhelm opponents with relentless wrestling pressure, suffocating control, and sheer aggression. For anyone to dethrone him, they'll need elite-level grappling and the composure to weather his storm. Otherwise, as fans have seen in fight after fight, it becomes a one-sided beatdown. Chimaev has also hinted at taking part in one of the most historic moments in combat sports, the UFC White House card, set to be one of the biggest events in MMA history. Beyond defending his middleweight crown, Chimaev has his eyes on something even greater, becoming a three-division world champion. It's an ambitious goal, but one that perfectly fits his fearless and dominant persona. For now, though, all attention turns to Vancouver. Erdi's chance to prove himself is just weeks away, and he's made his mission abundantly clear. He wants Khamzat, he wants the belt, and he wants it to happen before Ramadan. The stakes couldn't be higher, and the middleweight division may soon find itself with a new, undeniable contender. Move on to another news. Sonnen has never been one to hold back his thoughts, and this time he has taken aim at the UFC's decision to book the highly anticipated rematch between Magomed Ankalaev and Alex Pereira. According to Sonnen, this is not a fight that fans demanded, nor one that fits the usual criteria for an immediate rematch in the UFC. Traditionally, the UFC reserves instant rematches for champions who have successfully defended their titles multiple times. In Sonnen's eyes, the Ankalaev vs Pereira situation does not fall under that standard. In fact, he argues that the first fight itself wasn't even in high demand. Speaking on his YouTube channel, Sonnen explained that the original bout between Ankalaev and Pereira only materialized because the UFC ran out of viable alternatives. The first fight wasn't asked for, Sonnen said. When these guys fought the first time, it was because the UFC found themselves in a situation where there was nowhere else to go. Believe me, they tried everything. They tried to get Rakic to derail the train. They brought in Khalil Rountree as the number 8 guy. They exhausted every option to avoid making that fight. Finally, they had no choice but to put it together. Now, with the rematch officially booked, Sonnen feels like history is repeating itself. He believes the UFC is once again pushing a fight that neither fans nor fighters were clamoring for. "We're remaking the same same fight that nobody asked for, not the audience, not even the athletes themselves, Sonnen remarked. For Sonnen, the biggest issue is the lack of genuine demand or organic narrative behind this matchup. Unlike other rivalries in UFC history that were fueled by bad blood, hype, or fan anticipation, this fight feels manufactured. The UFC is heavily investing in a storyline that, according to Sonnen, simply doesn't exist. Looking at the broader implications, Sonnen pointed out the dilemma this rematch creates. If Pereira manages to reclaim the title, it all but guarantees a trilogy fight. That would mean committing to a third showdown in a rivalry that, in Sonnen's opinion, never truly captured the imagination of the fans. On the other hand, if Ankalaev retains the belt, Pereira might not get another opportunity right away, especially considering how long it took Ankalaev to earn his initial shot at gold. This, Sonnen argues, highlights the complicated nature of UFC matchmaking. Sometimes fights are built around compelling storylines, personal rivalries, or overwhelming fan demand. Other times, they are put together simply because there is no better option available at the moment. In this case, Sonnen believes the UFC is forcing a narrative in order to move the division forward. Whether or not fans agree with Sonnen's criticism, one fact remains clear: Ankalaev versus Pereira 2 is happening. Depending on the outcome, it could even lead to a third fight, a prospect Sonnen believes is unnecessary. Still, for the UFC, this might simply be the path they see as best for the light heavyweight division. Move on to another news. The conversation surrounding Ilia Topuria's first title defense has quickly become one of the most debated topics in MMA. Ever since Topuria's stunning knockout victory over Charles Oliveira at UFC 317, speculation has been non-stop about who deserves the next shot at the featherweight champion. While Topuria himself has repeatedly expressed interest in facing Paddy Pimblett, Michael Chiesa is making a strong case that Justin Gaethje is the man who truly deserves the opportunity. Topuria has been vocal about dismissing Gaethje as a potential challenger, suggesting that the matchup is not one fans are asking for, but Chiesa is not convinced by that narrative. In a recent interview with MMA Junkie, he laid out a detailed argument as to why Gaethje should be the clear front-runner for the title fight. Chiesa pointed first to timing. If Topuria had intended to return in December, the UFC would have likely announced his next opponent by now. That suggests the champion's next defense may not come until early 2026. When that time arrives, Chiesa believes Gaethje should be the one standing across the cage. While rumors linking Topuria to a fight with Paddy Pimblett continue to circulate, Chiesa argued that Gaethje makes far more sense both competitively and commercially. Stylistically, Gaethje represents one of the toughest matchups for Topuria, testing his durability and pace in a way few others can. Beyond the technical aspects, Gaethje remains one of the most beloved fighters on the UFC roster, known for his all-action style and relentless heart. Chiesa emphasized that even if the worst-case scenario unfolded, Gaethje dethroning Topuria, the UFC would hardly suffer. In fact, Chiesa argued, it could still be a win for the promotion. Fans adore Gaethje, the UFC understands his value, and his time in the sport is limited. That reality, Chiesa believes, is exactly why Gaethje should be rewarded with this chance now. Unlike younger fighters who still have years ahead of them, Gaethje does not have the luxury of time. Chiesa pointed out that Gaethje has earned this opportunity not only with his wins but through years of sacrificing his health and longevity in unforgettable wars for the fans. He highlighted Gaethje's willingness to take dangerous fights, such as his high-stakes battle with Max Holloway. That matchup was a massive gamble, one that could have derailed his career, yet Gaethje accepted it for the sake of competition and entertainment. Justin has sacrificed his health, his body, and pieces of himself he'll never get back, all to give fans unforgettable fights, Chiesa explained. If anyone deserves this chance, it's him. As for Paddy Pimblett, Chiesa made it clear that fight will always be there. Both Topuria and Pimblett are young, and their careers are only beginning to peak. Their paths will inevitably cross in the future, but Gaethje's window is closing fast, and if the UFC truly wants to do right by him, the time is now. Chiesa also addressed another contender, Arman Tsarukyan, noting that while Tsarukyan is a rising force, he likely needs one more significant victory before earning a title shot. That leaves Gaethje as the undeniable and logical choice. In Chiesa's view, the answer is simple: give Justin Gaethje the title shot while the moment is still here. For the UFC, it is both the right decision competitively and the respectful one for a fighter who has given everything to the sport. Move on to another news. Veteran UFC welterweight Matt Brown has never been one to hold back his opinions, and this time he's directed his criticism at one of the most talked about matchups in recent recent memory: Conor McGregor vs Michael Chandler. While the fight has captured mainstream buzz, Brown believes it holds little to no significance for the sport of mixed martial arts. Speaking with MMA Fighting, Brown explained that while McGregor's name will always generate headlines and attract attention, the actual fight itself does not move the needle in terms of divisional impact or competitive importance. People will talk about Conor fighting no matter what, Brown said, but the Chandler matchup doesn't carry any real weight. It doesn't change divisions. It doesn't create new contenders. It really just exists to sell tickets. Brown contrasted the fight with matchups that truly matter, pointing to the heavyweight division as an example. He highlighted the possibility of Jon Jones, widely regarded as the greatest fighter of all time, facing Tom Aspinall, provided Aspinall defeats Cyril Gane. That, Brown argued, would be a fight of enormous historical significance. A Jones versus Aspinall clash would represent a generational showdown, a game-changer, with long-term consequences for the legacy of both men and the heavyweight division itself. For Brown, fights like Jones versus Aspinall embody the essence of MMA. They are competitive, meaningful, and carry historical weight. In contrast, McGregor versus Chandler, or even the hypothetical return of someone like Ronda Rousey, fall into a different category. Those are not legacy-defining contests. They are spectacles designed to leverage star power and attract casual viewers. To the die-hard fans who followed this sport for years, those kinds of fights don't spark real interest, Brown explained. Sure, they get mainstream attention, but for the people who care about the sport itself, they don't mean much. That said, Brown acknowledged the UFC's perspective and why the promotion continues to book fights like McGregor versus Chandler. From the business side, what matters most is not how hardcore analysts or longtime fans dissect the matchup on Monday morning. What matters is whether everyday people, like a construction worker heading to his job, as Brown put it, are talking about the fight with their friends. And McGregor, despite his recent setbacks, still has the ability to generate that level of buzz. His star power remains unmatched, and pairing him with a fan favorite like Michael Chandler creates a high-profile clash that is easy to promote. From Dana White's perspective, Brown admitted, the fight makes perfect sense. It's a pick-em matchup. Both men are popular, and the American audience will rally behind Chandler while still being drawn to McGregor's aura. From a spectacle standpoint, Brown conceded, the fight checks all the boxes, but in his view, it fails to offer anything of lasting value for the sport. It doesn't elevate a division, crown a new star, or provide historical context. Ultimately, Brown said that if the fight does go forward, he hopes the UFC at least stacks the undercard with meaningful matchups that give serious fans something to get excited about, because as far as the main event goes, he has little interest in seeing McGregor and Chandler face off.